In our final tutorial, we will use the basic properties of limits. So let's flip on over to our final section and talk about our properties of limits. The good news is this makes intuitive sense. What you think would happen actually does happen. So given that we have the limit as x approaches c of f of x, we'll make that equal to L. And the limit as x approaches c of g of x, a different function, we'll make that limit equal to k. So we have 5 things that we could do. If we multiply some constant, some number b, to f of x, that's the same thing as multiplying b to the limit of f of x. So that makes sense. If we are adding two functions together, or if we're subtracting those two functions, we can add or subtract their limits together, and it would be the same. So if we're trying to find the limit of a sum, that's the same thing as taking the sum of their limits. Same thing for a product. We could just multiply their two limits together. That would be the same exact limit as if we multiplied the functions together first and then took the limit. So it might be easier, since you know the limits individually, to just multiply the limits individually. If we're dividing them, of course, we'd be dividing their limits. Now, of course, this time k cannot be equal to 0 because we cannot divide by 0. And then finally, if we take a function and we raise that to some power and then try to find the limit, we could just take the limit of the function individually and then raise the limit to that same power. So these all hopefully make sense to you, and let's incorporate them. Let's use them. So we've got that the limit as x approaches 2 of f of x is 4. The limit as x approaches 2 of g of x is 5. And the limit as x approaches 3 of h of x is 6. So we're given these three functions and we know what their limits are. What would the limit as x approaches 2 of 3 times the sum of these two functions be? Well, it's as simple as taking 3 times the limit of f of x, which is 4, plus the limit of g of x, which is 5, and we're finished. That is 27. Easy enough. Let's move on to this. The limit as x approaches 2 of 2 times the function f of x divided by the function g of x cubed. Well, that's as simple as taking the 2, multiplying it to the limit of f of x, which is 4, and dividing that by the limit of g of x cubed, which is 5 cubed. And that is equal to 8 divided by 125. Perfect. Next one. What is the limit as x approaches 2 of 1/2 of f of x? Well, that's simply going to be 1/2 of the limit of f of x, which is 1/2 of 4, which is 2. It's really this simple. Watch out on the last one. It says, what's the limit as x approaches 2 of f of x times h of x? Well, I know that the property says that I can split this up into the limit as x approaches 2 of f of x and multiply that to the limit as x approaches 2 of h of x. Okay. I do know that the limit as x approaches 2 of f of x is equal to 4. Unfortunately, I do not know what the limit as x approaches 2 of h of x is. I've been given the limit as x approaches 3 of h of x, but that's not the same thing as the limit as x approaches 2. And since I don't know what this function is, I can't do anything more. So I'll just leave this as the limit as x approaches 2 of h of x until somebody comes along and tells me what the function h of x is, so I can calculate that. So we can't actually evaluate this one. Other than that, these properties are pretty easy to deal with. You just use the limits that have been given to you and use those correct operations. Okay, that'll do it. We'll see you in class and we'll practice all 3 of these tutorials. Thank you. See ya.